The Expert Series is brought to you by Draw It Paint, the dry erase paint company that specializes in the highest quality of whiteboard walls available worldwide. Draw It Paint is constantly undergoing tests and procedures to ensure industry-leading, top-quality products with 3 selections to choose from. Recruit, Unique, and Limitless are guaranteed to suit all your dry erase paint needs.
My name's Elias Everett. I'm a real estate broker. I do a variety of types of brokerage, mainly commercial. I do a little bit of residential on the side. Most of my commercial properties are industrial related properties such as warehousing. I live in the Bronx, been living there the last 5 years. I grew up just outside of the Bronx, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. Went to school in Syracuse, and I was a realtor up there for a little bit, and then came back down to New York. I'm from around here, so yeah, now I'm back here. And I've been doing real estate for 7 years now, 7.5 years. Really enjoy it. There's a lot to do in this area in regards to real estate. That's pretty much my rundown.
Okay, that's a good intro. So how long is it that you said you're in the Bronx?
I've been living in the Bronx 5 years now. I moved back to the area 5 years ago, so 5 years now. I live in Riverdale, but actually I'm moving to the other side of, if you know the Bronx, there's a park in the Bronx called Van Cortlandt Park, and I'm moving from one side of the park to the other side of the park at the end of the month, which is kind of exciting. So.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So there's like the 5 boroughs of New York City, and they all have their own different cultures and personalities. What makes the Bronx so like unique and special to you?
Okay, so I pretty much went into this one. The Bronx is a very culture-rich area. There are so many different cultures, and this has been going on for the last 100 years. At one point, I'll just give you a brief history of the Bronx. In the early 1900s, the Bronx was a significantly Jewish community. It was actually about 50% Jewish, the entire part of the Bronx. There was a huge Italian population in a neighborhood called Belmont. You've heard of Little Italy. If you saw the movie, what was the movie with De Niro? I think it was A Bronx Tale. A Bronx Tale, yeah. That took place in Belmont, which is this very Italian neighborhood. A lot of people have heard of Arthur Avenue. Very cultural street with a lot of Italian shops, meat shops, cheese shops, restaurants. Other nationalities that have wound up in the Bronx. There's a very large Irish community in the Woodlawn section of the Bronx. And everywhere you go, when you go to these neighborhoods, you see the character, and it changes so much. Each block, everywhere you go, there's really the history of those cultures, which is kind of rooted in the Bronx, which is very, very interesting. And then later into the 60s and 70s, hip hop became a very big thing. Hip hop was started in the Bronx, and you see a lot of that culture in the Bronx right now, specifically in the South Bronx. I feel like that's really been a push to what's been going on down there. They're even putting in a hip hop museum. They're going to be building one in the next couple of years. Another interesting cultural aspect that's a world practice dance. Salsa dancing was actually started in the Bronx. A lot of people think that it has its roots from Cuba. It absolutely does, but it really took hold in the Bronx and in Spanish Harlem. These 2 locations were very big with salsa music and salsa dancing, and that's really where it got big. And now it's an international dance, and it's kind of cool if you think about it. Other things about the Bronx. the Yankees, the cultural icon of the entire world. I mean, you go over to China and people are wearing the Yankees hats. Unfortunately, they are not going to be going to the World Series, but it is what it is. But that is such a historical area. The new Yankee Stadium is beautiful, and people come from around the world to check out the Yankees because they're probably the most well-known sports dynasty in the world. I mean, there might be a soccer team here and there, but I'd say the Yankees if I were a betting man. So you see a lot of culture in the Bronx. It's definitely an eclectic mix of every type of nationality, which is cool. It's interesting to go from neighborhood to neighborhood and see the change in culture.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why it's so special to me. So to answer
yeah,
that.
I can see that. I can see that being for a lot of people how they want to live in an area that has that much exposure to culture. Like it's interesting stuff. And like you said about the Yankees, they are like known like all over because they are probably the biggest team. I feel like it.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to question. You see Yankee hats everywhere. It's like not in New York. I'm talking everywhere.
Yeah, even up in we're in Edmonton, but you'd see Yankee hats and stuff like that. I know from my hometown, there's a lot of people that would wear them and stuff. Like it's just it's almost like a trending thing.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Red Deer, so that would be like an hour and a half south of Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, still in Alberta and all that. But yeah, I guess I don't know if this ties in with like maybe the culture and stuff, but do you have many activities outside of your work and stuff? Like do you get involved in the community and all that?
Yeah, I'm fairly involved. Just from a general perspective, the main thing that I'm involved with, I do a lot of extracurriculars, a lot. I have a very busy schedule. One thing that pertains to the South Bronx, I'm involved in an organization called South Bronx United. It's a youth program it's geared towards children of immigrants, and it's an educational and athletic program where the kids who are in high school, it's 9 through 12. The goal is to get these kids into college. That's really the goal. They come for tutoring 2 days a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then they have soccer practice on a travel team throughout the week. And then they have games on the weekends. It's both boys and girls. They have a boys division and a girls division. That's very important to me. I've been involved with this organization for about 4 years now. I'm a tutor. I'm a volunteer tutor, but it's great because you really get to engage the youth. And most of the kids are from the Bronx. They come from schools in the Bronx, but some of them come from Manhattan. But it's just a really good program because it helps kids who do not get certain opportunities because of where their parents come from. And it really gives them the opportunity and focuses them to get into school, because we're really living in a society today where you need this piece of paper that says that you're qualified to get a job. So it's very, very good to put these kids forward, and we're fairly successful in helping these kids move on. So that's a big organization I'm involved with in the South Bronx. Other than that, I'm involved. I'm a Syracuse University alumni, and I'm on the board for the New York City Syracuse alumni group called Big Apple Orange. So that keeps me fairly involved. I'm involved in other organizations. I'm involved in the Jewish board for the junior board for the Jewish Board for Family and Children Services. So that keeps me occupied. Other things that I do on the side, I love to cook, and I'm a liquor aficionado. I'm very into alcohols and their history, and I could do an entirely other interview on alcohol and the types of alcohol and the history behind it and everything like that. I find it very fascinating that every culture from around the world seems to have their own type of alcohol. It's very cool if you really think about it, yet they're all from all different parts of the world. also I try to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm one of these, I'm very health conscious, and especially with the stuff that they have in food, I really read way too much into it probably. And, it's just kind of funny. So that's me in a nutshell. Some extracurriculars I do. So
yeah, that's interesting. Like certain people get into certain topics, and then like you find it like interesting enough that you just like look into it and stuff. And like everyone has their own thing to kind of look into. But yours is like the history of alcohol and stuff. I find that pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I could do an entire new discussion on it. Alcohol is such a cultural thing. Listen, I appreciate it for what, like, the process and the hard work that goes into cultivating something that is worshipped in certain cultures. I mean, it's like that. It's a cultural thing, and I love the history and the etymology behind a lot of things. I kind of like to look that up, so kind of got me into that.
Yeah, true. I can totally see that though. And yeah, the work put into some of this stuff is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, years upon years, refining recipes, little additions, and it's fascinating. It really is. There's a lot of history behind liquor. So real estate and then liquor for me.
It's almost like it's taken for granted too. People don't even think about it. They just go buy it and stuff or whatever. It's like, oh, there's certain things you can get, but they don't know the history behind it. Because I bet you everything you'd see in a store has like years of history behind it and how it ended up there.
Every single one. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, especially a lot of the whiskeys and the tequilas. They have a lot of history behind them, and whiskey in particular. Whiskey is, there's so many different types of whiskeys everywhere around the world. You can find a different type of whiskey. It's and then everyone has different characteristics. So I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I could go on.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I guess next question we have. It says on your Instagram, there's highlights of like street art within New York City. What influenced you to go post this type of content?
So I'm really glad you asked this question. I love the arts. Artists, every type of artist they put a lot of work into whatever they're developing. And New York City is an arts and cultural melting pot, an international arts and cultural melting pot. And street art, especially since the advent of social media, and I'm talking about the nice murals, not the illegal graffiti that you'd see on the subways and on decrepit buildings and everything like that. But especially since the advent of social media, this street art has become an international movement. I have been to other cities and seeing it develop. Like, for example, in my buddy lives in Nashville. I went down to Nashville. They have this street art with wings that everybody takes a picture of. It's kind of like an Instagram famous street art mural. But in New York City, it's now everywhere you go. Specifically in artsy neighborhoods such as the South Bronx, which is really an artsy, trendy neighborhood. You see a lot of it in Brooklyn. In Bushwick, it's all over the place. Everywhere you go in Bushwick, you see street art. And the developers welcome it because it makes their buildings look interesting and hip and cool and kind of retro to some extent. So what's great that the developers are letting it go on, it makes the New York experience more enjoyable when you can kind of turn a corner and see another different type of art. And there's so many different styles. And there's now become these world-renowned street artists, and a lot of them have art in New York City. And especially with the social media, they put their handle right on the art so people can look them up right away. And then a developer walking by who sees this particular artist's work says, hey, maybe I should call him and he can do something for my building. Urban art is really an experience. It's like, you never know you never know what you're going to see. And it's great. Just you come out of a subway and there's art on brick, and it's nice. And I think that it's important to highlight this on social media, as it's become very extensive in New York City. New York, it tends to push trends, and I feel that this new type of art is it's forward thinking, it's new, it's fresh. I think it's great. So I like to highlight it as much as possible, because I think that a street art is a pull to neighborhoods, and I'm glad to see that it's going on all over the place. It's nice. It makes the walk more enjoyable. So I like to point out every time I see one, I take a picture. I mean, you see them everywhere now. It's great. You know, like very, very legitimate art on bricks, and just, it's nice to watch. It's really just enjoyable.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. And the fact that you post that, because there's a lot of cities and stuff that don't really have what New York has, like that art scene or whatever. And like people, like, obviously, like they like seeing that kind of stuff on social media or whatever, because it's like, oh, like shit, like we don't have this here, or some interesting things like elsewhere in some of these major cities and all that. So that it's interesting to post stuff like that too on social media. You get some exposure for it.
Yeah. My thought is that in the next, who knows how long, but I expect that you will see this trend to continue, and you'll start seeing urban art in many, many cities. I mean, even in my hometown, they started doing it. And my hometown is I grew up in Larchmont. It's just outside of the Bronx. And it's got a downtown. I mean, a downtown being one block, but it's got a downtown area. And I've now seen street art in this downtown area on sides of walls, just to kind of make the block a little bit nicer. I think it's just going to continue to spread. Everywhere you go, I got a feeling you're going to start seeing these urban arts. And with social media, it just takes it to the next level. I mean, you can really put your message out there and let people know what you're doing and who you are too. That used to not be a thing with graffiti. Used to, people would tag a wall with graffiti. You wouldn't know who the artist was. Now, with this advent of social media, people put their handle. You can see what else they've done. So.
Yeah, social media is a really good tool. It's got its pros and cons, but when it comes to promoting stuff or like promoting stuff, like it's crazy.
Yeah. It definitely has its cons. I will agree with you in that regard. It's got a lot of cons. So
I guess speaking on the topic of social media, what do you like the most about it, and then what are things you hate about it? Like either like personal, like just personal use, or like business wise, like.
Okay, so my firm belief, I'll be very candid about this question, because I'm a millennial. I'm 28. So Facebook started. I got my Facebook when I was in, let's say, like middle of high school or something like that. So that's kind of when social media started becoming a thing. I only use it for business. I got rid of all my personal social medias right after I graduated college, and I only use it for business. It is very specific towards business. I don't want any personal information up there. I think that doesn't look good. The way that I view social media and how it should be used is, businesses used to have a website, and you would refer to their website to find out who they are, what they're about. Now you give somebody a social media handle, and that's where they look. And it's kind of just created an organization between companies, I guess, if you want. I think that it becomes a problem when people use it all the time. And I'm not talking about the people who post. I'm talking about the 95% of people who don't post, who there's statistics that show that it leads to depression. There's statistics that show that amongst a certain age demographics, but I think it's a much younger age demographic, like sub 20 or sub 18. I've heard that it raises the suicide rate. I don't know how true this is, but I've heard this, that amongst like younger people, I don't follow any of my friends because I don't want to see their highlights. It's going to make me feel bad. And I think that that's a big problem with social media. People are looking at other people's highlight reels and are not, they think that, why is your life so good and my life sucks, when quite frankly, that's not even the case. I mean, when quite frankly, the person that's posting is miserable right now. And so it's kind of just a backwards thing. I think it should only be used for business. I only follow people that I do business with. The only reason that I post consistently is to generate business. I have a show right after this phone call. I have a showing in Queens through social media, through Instagram. You know, that's, if you're not on social media to make money or push a message, don't be on social media. If it's just for personal purposes, don't be on social media. It's more negative for you mentally than positive. It's a good way to stay in touch, but you know, you can keep a Facebook for events, and if people send you events and everything like that. But I think that things like Instagram and Twitter, they're just internet fights for the most part, especially Twitter. I mean, you see these arguments where people are just arguing. They don't even know who the other person is, and they're arguing through a virtual screen. It's kind of funny, actually. So those are my thoughts on social media. I think it should just be used for business, nothing personal.
Yeah, I can totally agree. I think social media does have, there's a lot wrong with it. Like, it is good for entertainment, stuff like that, or whatever, finding things or whatever. But when it comes to like, when people are looking at things like personally and stuff, all it is good stuff. You never have negative stuff, because who's gonna post like, you know, like they crashed their car? Who's gonna like take a picture and post that on Instagram, or like if they got in a breakup, or you know, like whatever it is? No one's posting that, even though that's always constantly going on. But I feel like it does have something to do with people too. I feel like this younger generation needs to be taught to not take it so seriously or something. Because like if you're insightful enough to know like social media is a mask for like all the bad stuff. It's basically just all the good stuff in other people's lives.
Yeah.
If you just learn not to take it personally, or feel like some other people are having such good lives, even though that's never the case. No one has a perfect life.
You can't do that. But I just feel like we're human. We can't make ourselves subconsciously do something. Sorry, I interrupted, but
no, it's good. No, I get that. It's hard for a person themselves. I'm saying is like, maybe if we had like, if society kind of raised us to be like, don't take things so like seriously, like on this, like social media is a powerful thing. Like you can go on it, but the moment you start you start seeing stuff that's making you down, that's when you just turn it off and go do something. Like go get a hobby or something, like go outside and like maybe start jogging or whatever, that like do something like in reality kind of deal.
No, I agree with you. The problem is people don't know that. So when they're stuck on this, like I know people who live on their Instagram and Facebook. It's like they don't do anything but scroll through their Instagram feed. I'm like, come on, like do something. Like you said, do something. So whatever.
I think that's a message to promote, is like getting people out more. I feel like social media keeps people inside a lot too, which is not good. And it also ruins communication skills. Like, honestly, I've talked to many people off of social media, and then like when you actually like see them or whatever, whether it's through Kijiji or whatever, like it is, they're like really awkward or something. Like you can tell they don't honestly get out that often, because it's just like they're too nervous when it's face to face. It's just like
I've heard that's a big issue with the current kids in middle school right now. That because kids in middle school and high school, that because they are so used to communicating on the digital device, like you said, they're awkward when they communicate face to face. or can't do it, or feel scared when they do it. It's anxieties. It's interesting.
Yeah. And the thing with social media is that it's like one of those things you have nothing to lose on almost, because when you're talking to someone, it's so much easier. Because you're not afraid of embarrassing yourself or whatever. Like you could post the best pictures of you, like, and then people will be like, oh wow, like, like, look at this guy. And in reality, maybe you're like, oh no, my hair doesn't look right or something like that. Or even you're just embarrassed on how to keep a conversation. I don't know. It's just, it's a mental thing. Is that when you're in the presence of someone else, some people just get extremely nervous.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, some people are that way. Some people are that way. Social media makes it worse.
And it goes for like maybe cyberbullying too, is like way more common than just someone bullying someone right up front. Because cyberbullying, you're hiding at home doing it. Like you don't have anything to lose on your end.
You can't escape cyberbullying. That's the problem. It used to be with bullying. I've heard a couple psychologists speak about this. With cyberbullying, especially, when you are at school, you can be bullied by the person there, but once you go home or you're in class, you can't be bullied anymore. With cyberbullying, you're always being bullied, even when you're home, even when you're in class and checking your phone, because people check their phones in class. It's tough. Yeah, it's definitely tough.
And it can also like escalate quickly to the amount of things that people could try to expose you.
Absolutely.
Like it can get bad with cyber. Like I don't see a lot of it. I feel like, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I feel like cyberbullying, like it still does happen, but like, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't exposed to any. Like I've never really heard, because our school was pretty good actually, honestly. We didn't really have a lot of that going around from what I've heard. Because cyberbullying, usually there's always rumors or something, or there's always someone getting exposed on social media or something. I never really saw too much of that, but I feel like cyberbullying, I don't know. There's a lot of social media is so weird because you can't tell when someone's being serious about something. I follow a bunch of meme pages and stuff. All that content is not to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some controversial stuff in it, but it's a joke. It's not to be taken seriously. But there's some people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And there'd be arguments in there. And then people be calling each other names, but at the end of the day.
Behind the phone on the toilet too.
Yeah. It's not, even just that, you can't even take it seriously. You can't take any of it seriously because it's just social media. It's just a meme page. It's a joke that someone got offended over. So then someone's like, oh, you're the joke. And then it just escalates and then it's ridiculous. It's funny to look at. Like you get a laugh out of it when you're just a spectator. You're like, wow, these guys are really mad over like a joke, right?
People get offended over the littlest things. Whatever.
That's another thing. Like, it seems like the world's a lot more sensitive than it used to be. Do you think social media has to do with that?
Yeah, I do. Yes. I think that a lot of, I'm not saying that any of these things are bad or good, but I think that social media has definitely driven many progressive movements that we're seeing, today in the last 4 years. And I think a lot of the progression has been through social media. I have my thoughts as to why that is. I think that a lot of it has to do with now people who thought that they were alone people with ideas who thought that they were the only ones with these particular ideas now have communities that they can discuss these ideas with. And is it positive reinforcement? Absolutely. They kind of get themselves into a hole, but it's definitely resulted in some of the progressive movements that we've seen in the last 4 years. I'm not saying if they're bad or good or anything like that. I just think that social media has kind of accelerated the movements. So,
yeah. What do you, yeah, it's really just a drive for that kind of stuff. It can be drive for anything in business and all that. Even with social media, the technology is getting kind of crazy nowadays, and that's kind of another topic I don't know, I want to hear your input on, but where do you like in 10 years for technology? Is it like scary to think about for you, or where do you think it's going to head?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm trying to stay with a positive outlook. I think that every industry, mine included, is on the chopping block. Even industries like here, attorney, the industry of lawyers, where people pay, you know, a couple $100,000 to get a law degree. There is now AI software that can analyze contracts 6 times faster than an attorney can to accuracy. So it's like, my job's going out of business too. I mean, eventually you're just going to be able to put on goggles and go to the listing. You don't need an agent to bring you to the listing. It's an ever-changing world where I think other industries that are on the chopping block, truck drivers, very big industry, very well-paid jobs too. I think they're on the chopping block. Manufacturing I mean, we've already seen what's happened to manufacturing. So yeah, I think technology is just, but you just got to accept it. I think that it's just something. Look at it as a positive than a negative. It's making just life easier in general. 10 years from now, I'm not sure how things will result, but I'm trying to stay in front of all the tech, just to make sure I don't fall behind. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, technology, like there's always people like bickering how it's going to like, we're going to lose jobs because of it or whatever.
We're already losing jobs. We're already losing them. It's just, I think that the next workforce has to be more in tune with the tech. So the next workforce should not necessarily be trained for the jobs that are available now, but for the jobs in the future. For example, fixing machines, not making the machines, fixing the machines when they go bust, editing software, learning. We're not even using computers anymore. 80% of my business is now on my phone. Learning how to actually use the smartphone. I feel like a lot of people don't actually know how to, the full capabilities of the smartphone, which are insane. I mean, it's just, it's amazing what the Magic Stick can do. I mean, it's great. So we'll certainly see what happens. So, anyway.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I guess, yeah, I kind of have some questions about the real estate, your career and whatnot. So what got you into commercial real estate?
So when I was in college, when I was a junior in college, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do after graduation. I was due to get a degree in psychology and philosophy. And I was very wishy-washy as to what my career choice was going to be. And then my dad, who is a lawyer, came to me and said, you know, you should look into commercial real estate. I have a friend who's in commercial real estate. Well, he knows a lot of people who are in commercial real estate, but he had one friend in particular that says, you know, it's a job you might be interested in. So he gave me a book and I read a little bit about it. And then I decided I wanted to get my real estate license after reading the book. So for the rest of my junior year, I focused on getting my real estate license. And then I was able to get an internship that summer with a commercial real estate company where I was able to finish my licensing course and I was able to take the exam. So I was a full agent by the end of my summer of junior year, beginning of senior year. So I had my license and I wanted to, the following year, my senior year, I was a part-time student. I had done many summer courses and prerequisite classes where I was way up front. So I was a part-time student. I was only taking 2 classes senior year. So I figured I might as well try and get an internship. So I emailed and called a bunch of real estate brokerage firms. I think I did 10. I think there were 10 or so in Syracuse. Called, emailed them, followed up with a phone call. Every single one of them rejected me for an internship. Sure enough, I was lucky enough that somebody in the office that I was interning at, who I had developed a good relationship with, she had a relationship with a broker who happened to be in one of these 10 offices. And she put me in touch with that person. So I was able to eventually get an interview, even though I sent out 10 emails, made 10 phone calls. They said, nope, we're not interested. We're not interested. We're not interested. Obviously, the contact helped. So they hired me as an agent because I already had my license. They figured we'll just hire you as an agent. You're part-time student, so you'll have time to work. So and then that's where I started. And then 2+ years after that, I moved back to the New York City area to pretty much start everything all over. I had to, it's a commission job, so I had to create a whole new clientele, really hustled hard, and then things started just falling into place, I guess. And so that was the good thing. And and I love New York. So it's a lot of fun to do commercial real estate in, but I never really thought that I was going to wind up in commercial real estate. I always wanted to do something with business. I wanted to get into stocks, but when I don't know if you ever saw the movie Trading Places, but I wanted to do something like that where I was on the floor yelling across the room for commodities or stocks or something like that, where everybody's really a lot of energy and everything like that. Now, if you go to the trading floor, the New York Stock Exchange, there's nobody there. It's like, a couple guys walking around with like the digital notepads and everything like that. So commercial real estate was a good alternative because I still am. It's very engaging. There's a lot of energy. You're on the phone all the time. You're showing property. There's a lot of talking. So I was able to still handle an asset class that I could still pick up the phone and make phone calls, which is great. Plus, you're never in the office. You're always, I come in and then usually I'm at 2 or 3 appointments during the day, and then I come back and conclude. So most of the day, you're not even at the office, which is nice.
Yeah, that's interesting. That really is. What was our next one? Oh yeah. So, what advice? Because you have like you've been on a whole journey kind of to get where you're at right now. Is there any advice you give for anybody trying to like aim to where you're at?
Okay, are we skipping? Hang on 1 second. I just want to try to.
It's sometimes scrambled. Honestly, every interview, it's never along the question line. Like we always like maybe drag it out to like different topics and stuff. So it's not like we follow everything. And sometimes you answer like a couple questions with one answer.
Yeah. I definitely wrote an answer for this.
You wrote an answer for it. Okay.
We've had previous. Hang on 1 second. Give me 1 second. I got like a bunch. Sorry, 1 second. I do want to cover this, and I wrote some notes on it, and that's why. Okay, did I find it? Here we go. What advice would you pass on to others looking to get into real estate? Great. All right. I would recommend to anybody who's looking to get into commercial real estate, especially if I never recommend somebody getting into the brokerage industry. And I say this because it is by far the hardest job I've ever had. It's exciting. I love every single minute of it, but it is by far the hardest job I've ever had. The failure rate of brokers, I have found multiple statistics on this, but it's incredibly high, especially from my observation. In the first 6 months of when a broker realizes, I'm not going to get a paycheck for a year, and I got to put in all this time and effort to get like a paycheck, I'm out of here. Once they realize how difficult it is and how many phone calls you actually need to make, then people start figuring it out that this is actually a very difficult industry to be in. But if you do decide to get into this industry, my first recommendation is make sure that you are financially stable for the first year and a half. You don't want to take on a job where you're not getting paid, that you will be concerned about money, because that will absolutely affect how you operate if you are always needing to be concerned with the bills for the first year and a half. The only person that's going to be able to help you is yourself. You can go to any firm and talk to any broker, and they'll tell you it's not the brokerage that makes you, it's you that makes you, and you make the brokerage. So don't think that somebody's going to help you along your journey. More advice, everybody lies. Take that to heart. Everybody lies. You're going to get a lot of no's, so be ready to get rejected almost every single time you make a phone call. Then after about 2 years, you'll start to enjoy it, which is kind of weird. Then it becomes kind of this exciting wake up. You never know what's going to happen. You already have the deals in the pipeline, so there's the energy and the excitement behind it. Fred Eklund from $1 Million Listing, I'm not sure if you watched that show, he's got a great line, great quote. Don't quit. This career is worth the tough beginning. And it's a very tough beginning, and I believe every single word of it. Some qualities that make good real estate brokers that I've seen, I think it's important to be social and extroverted. I think that that's important just in sales to begin with, but really anybody can get into real estate. And you're not going to know what you're doing at first, and just kind of accept that. And then after a year or two, it just starts getting easier, you know, or actually you just get better at it. I don't even think it starts getting easier. You just get better.
Yeah. So you basically recommend it to people that like, that's their dream job, or like they're really determined.
Yeah.
Those are the type of people you want in there.
Yeah. And you can tell right away if somebody's going to make it or not. Within the first week, there's such an attitude and energy. The people that are most successful care the least. They deals die on people all the time, and they don't even care. They just move on to the next deal. They constantly have the energy. Oh, failure here, let's move on to the next one. Failure here, let's move on to the next one. There's you can hear the energy in successful brokers. It's common. It's this excitement that kind of comes with the attitude. That's probably across many different sales positions, not just real estate.
Yeah. So it's basically knowing when to let go and knowing when to move on. It's like really time management, if anything, knowing when someone's wasting your time. But
the best answer you can have to people is no. I can't tell you how many. I get calls. I get so many phone calls. I turn down 4 out of 5 leads. I mean, it's just, there's so many people, especially in New York City, they're not qualified to do a deal. If you can figure that out in the first minute, you just saved yourself who knows how much time. And you just got to say no. You just got to say no. So at first you got to say yes to everything, but eventually you got to start saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something, yeah, I would feel like you'd have to have the insight to do it. Like you got to know when. It's all that timing, like I said, and like you're basically explaining, it's just time management and knowing when to say certain things.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's like your typical buying and selling process like for you and like your clients?
Okay, so hang on 1 second. All right. So each real estate deal is very, very different, and it's hard to kind of pinpoint what the typical buying and selling process is. I will say this: this business is all about relationships. You'll meet somebody and try and do business with them, and you might do business with them 2.5 years down the line on some other transaction that wasn't the first thing that you worked on. In general, the buying and selling process, though, is very exciting. Being in the middle of negotiating is great. Somebody calls you, they give you, we'll make this offer, and then you call the guy, hey, I got this offer. All right, counter back. There's a lot of, It's very exciting. Negotiation in particular is just a very exciting process. Buying, when it comes to selling properties, there's a whole marketing strategy that you really need to put behind a listing. When you do have a listing to sell, obviously putting together market materials is very important, but the main tried and true way of selling real estate is pick up the phone and cold call. Cold calling works. People don't want to do it anymore because we have social media and email. And I mean, I responded to your Instagram post, but I can't tell your Instagram message, but I can't tell you how many solicitations I get through Instagram, LinkedIn, email, any other platform. But if they call me, I'll take the phone call. But nobody calls anymore. It's like, why are we scared to pick up the phone all of a sudden? Because we have this, the magic stick that does everything for us. It's very frustrating, and you also save a lot of time. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you email back and forth on one topic over the course of 5 days. Yet if you had just picked up the phone, you would have solved this problem in 3 minutes. This is so consistent across the board, not just in real estate, but like every industry. Just pick up the phone. It's kind of funny. So in regards to the buying process, though, doing residential and commercial are very different. When it comes to residential purchasing, if you're selling to somebody who's going to be living in that apartment, it's a consumer product, and you need to find something that they're going to like. When it comes to commercial real estate, it's a business decision. There is no emotional attachment to it. It all has to do with numbers. You have to find something that works. Two different things. You got, with residential, if someone's going to live there, you got to find something they like. But if it's commercial, a lot of times their building was sold, their lease is expiring, they lost a big client, so now they can't afford the rent that they had. They got a big client that now they need more space for. Does it work or does it not work? And that's what I like about commercial real estate. It's a lot more cut and dry. It's more difficult to do the transactions because there's a lot more moving pieces, and every deal is different, as opposed to residential, where it's, oh, the building's under contract. Oh, they qualified for financing. All right, time to go to the closing table. When it comes to commercial, a lot of times you're dealing with buildings that have violations on them, environmental contamination. Is the town going to approve what you want to do there? So there's a lot more moving parts, but it's a business decision, which is kind of more logical, which I enjoy more. I enjoy the commercial a little more than the residential. So.
Yeah, commercials definitely, even just like the sound of it, sound like a lot more work than just typical residential stuff.
Significantly more. It's night and day. But the rewards, I mean, the rewards can be much greater. So.
Yeah, for sure. So even speaking of commercial with businesses and stuff, how do you self-promote your work or like your job or your business to grab attention?
So the big thing that I've been using to gain attention, I really do. I'm a believer in social media. I mean, you found me through social media. I've done other interviews. I did a tour of the South Bronx for a news channel. They found me through social media. I'm a firm believer in social media, in promoting the message. But here's the thing. I've only done one transaction through Instagram, yet I put a ton of time and effort into it. So I don't really look at the social media as a money generator. I look at it more as a brand. I tell people, check out my Instagram. I tell people, check out my LinkedIn. I tell people, check out my website. So that's what I've been using to do promotion, but I don't necessarily know what the bottom line is. I feel like with social media, and my buddy's in digital advertising, and he tells me there's no way to tell what the ROI actually is. Nobody knows what the return of investment is on digital media. You don't know if what they saw is actually going to influence them to purchase the product. So the best way to do self-promotion for me, I just cold call. I pick up the phone. I call. I drive around. I walk into buildings. I cold call. It's all cold. Just that's the way you got to do it. It's a lost art, but I think it's tried and true. And just pick up the phone, make the call.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Is there any goals you've set yourself in terms of like even promotions or just even business goals?
So my goals are ever changing, and quite frankly, I try and set incredibly high, unreachable goals for myself to kind of continue to motivate me. So I never expect to reach my goals. I'll write them down, but I never expect to reach them. They're just something to look at and focus on. So I can feel motivated to keep going and move forward. And my goals are ever changing. The main goal for me though, and I'm seeing this, as a millennial, my main goal is just to be happy. I just want to enjoy life. I don't want to have all these incredible stressors at all times, and I want to just continue to be involved. So one way that I kind of, what a big goal for me to is just be involved in a lot of things. I mean, I'm involved in a lot of organizations. I have many hobbies. They're not even business goals. They just make me feel better, and because they make me feel better, I do better at business, or I feel better at work. And so I don't think I have a actual goal that I'm trying to shoot for. It's kind of just being generally happy. Yeah, I think that's what everybody should strive for.
Yeah, for sure. How well, like even with goals set and all that, how well do you like balance your life, like the personal side and then the business side of things? Do you have like maybe you have different types of goals personally, and then maybe business wise, you have different goals, or what's it all about?
So hang on, I just want to see. Did I write this down? Did I write something like this down? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I can't even.
It's like it's just like how do you balance your life, like your personal life and your work life? Like how do you balance all of that?
I found it. Here we go. Okay, so the way that I do it is I keep a very, very strict schedule with very strict hours. And I think that keeping a schedule, if you're a commercial real estate broker, if you're in business in general, your schedule is open. You can do whatever you want. No one's going to tell you got to be at your job or so forth and so on. So to balance so a lot of times when you have a personal thing to do, you're like, oh no, I didn't do that work thing, so I can't do my personal thing. So how do you balance the two? You keep strict hours for yourself. So I'm very big on time management. If you're not strict on yourself and you don't treat yourself as a business, you're lost. So you can actually do a lot as a result of this. So my hours every day, you can call me between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. But that's it. After 5 p.m., I have my evening activity, whatever that evening activity is, whether it's a volunteer organization or an extracurricular that I'm involved in. By keeping a strict schedule, I am very easily able to balance my work and personal life, because people know when I'm in operation, or I know when I'm in operation and when I can allot time to certain things. So I think that just keeping a strict schedule and a calendar is important in balancing work and personal life. I also think physical activity, whether it's going to the gym or going for a run, I think that that's also very important because it makes you feel better. And that actually should just be the priority for the day. Forget work. Your priority for the day should be 30 minutes of physical activity or an hour of whatever you want to do. I think that keeps people sane. And it also keeps you on track, because you look forward to, your body knows you have to do this every day. So it keeps you going. It keeps work balance. It keeps work personal life balance. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good way to eliminate stress too, because stress is basically when like everyone's minds, like your mind's racing about multiple things. If you could learn to set your mind like, hey, it's this hour, like this strict schedule sounds like a really good idea, because you set your mind to one thing at a time. Because some people might go to the gym right after work or something, like different times every day, and they still might have things going on in their head while they're trying to do workout and stuff. And that's kind of where stress builds up, because you have so much going on in your head, and then it's like your head's pounding all the time. I feel like if you have a strict schedule that's like consistent, then your mind's always constantly set. And as long as your schedule is like balanced right, and it's all like you have a good amount of time for everything, then your mind doesn't have a worry, because it's like it works.
Yeah.
Like everything works.
Exactly.
With that, are there many key lessons you've learned throughout your career?
Yeah. So here, I wrote down a handful, and these are all from other people. These are not, and they're general. Be humble and kind. Be humble. That's the biggest thing, especially with social media. People show off all the time. It really drives me nuts. Be kind. Keep the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want done unto yourself. I think that that's very important. Just treat people just generally respectfully. Be respectful. Show up early. Don't show up on time. Show up early. 10 minutes early. That's important. That gets you organized. That gets you there. And don't lie to yourself. I find a lot of people, they tell themselves things to kind of just make themselves feel better. If in like my career, in my industry, if you don't think that the job is for you, don't lie to yourself and tell you that the job is for you. Go do something else. Don't lie to yourself. Why would you lie to yourself? It doesn't make any sense, but people do it. People do it all the time to make themselves feel better. And it's a justification. And I think that that's very important. Just don't lie to yourself. So, yeah.
How often do you see people lying to themselves? Just to, like,
I see it pretty frequently. Here, I'll give you an example. For business, and I've even done it to myself. I see a listing that I want to go after, and I'm about to pick up the phone, and I say, you know what? He's probably going to do it by himself. There's no point in me picking up the phone, because I already know he's going to do it by himself. And then sure enough, another broker has the listing, a week later. I just lied to myself because I was too scared to make a phone call. So that's just one example. There's so many other examples that you can do. That guy made that deal because he knew the landlord. So the only reason he made the deal is because he knew the landlord. Well, actually, he knew the landlord because he had called him 2 years prior and got a tenant for the landlord, and then it all worked out. But the person was lying to himself as to how that person did that deal. A lot of people want to try and discredit people when you really can't discredit them. They did it. They did it. There's nothing around that. It's kind of funny, but yeah, you see it frequently. People lying to themselves.
I think that's in general just something that everyone does do here and there. It's a bad habit.
It's a fallacy. I mean, it's just you think one thing, but you're mistaken. So
yeah, you want to live in. It's almost like you want to live in your own perfect world where everything kind of makes, like, I don't know. If there's things you don't like, you lie to yourself about things. I don't know.
Exactly.
Anyhow, that really covers most of the business side of things. Would there be anything you want to add to it?
I wanted to talk about the fun questions, because some of them are great. Yeah, and I have a couple more minutes, so
okay.
I wouldn't mind doing those.
I guess you did explain New York very well, but one thing I wanted to ask about New York is, like, what annoys you the most about living there?
Okay. Wow. Oh my God. I forgot to go on to this question. Hang on 1 second. This will be great. What annoys me the most? And then you had another question. What would you do if you were in charge for one day? Which I definitely, okay. What annoys me the most about New York City? The subway system. It's a mess. It's a huge, I don't know if you've been to New York ever recently. People rely on this transportation system so much. It's the fabric of New York. And over the last couple years, it has deteriorated so much. A lot of it, I could get into another whole topic as to why the subway system is not operating properly, but I choose to not take the subway as often as possible because it is so unreliable, yet everybody relies on it. And it kind of drives me nuts. But I'm hopeful that I'm hopeful things will get better. So, but, and then if I was in charge for one day, I wanted to change the question. If I was mayor, I was hoping I could handle it like that. So if I was mayor instead of being in charge for one day, first, I would make a very concerted effort to fixing the subway system. There's no one to blame for its dysfunction. I mean, it's a very old system, but there needs to be effort and money that is just dumped into this thing to make it more efficient, especially if you're trying to decongest the city from driving. You got to put money into the main public transportation system. So that's one thing I would do. If I were mayor, I would work with companies like Uber and Airbnb. I'm a believer in the tech, and I think that the lobbying groups from the hotel industry and the taxi cab industry, they're going to lose. They're eventually going to lose because the tech is stronger. The tech has money behind it. These guys can fight. Like Uber's valuation is huge. I don't know what Airbnb's is, but it's like this is just the changing of the technology and the changing of the world, and we can all work together. And I would really make an effort to work with these new tech companies that are kind of changing industries, like Uber and Lyft are changing the cab industry. Airbnb is changing the hotel industry. The government will get its money. I would work with these guys to make that happen. Other big thing, I would make a very big effort to fix the current homeless problem in NYC. It is gotten rampant. It is really bad. And the mayor had this initiative to come out with 90 homeless shelters. They barely started. It's just really bad. And it makes the city very unbecoming. And a lot of these people, they need help. And there's no general effort from this current administration to help these people. When Bloomberg was running the city, cops would go up to homeless people. Now cops don't go up to homeless people to ask, hey, how you doing? Do you need any help? Can we take you to a shelter or something like that? No, they just walk by. And it's just very unbecoming. And these people, especially with the winter, these people could die on the streets. I mean, like it gets really, really cold in New York. So anyway, there we go. I had my quick rant on what I would do. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. I guess, yeah, there's besides all of that, there's those trends. Like, these are like the trendy questions we ask and kind of get your input on them. So the first one we have is, are you familiar with Elon Musk's strange business ventures?
So I'm familiar with some, but not a lot. And it's a topic. This is the one question I don't want to do because I don't have enough knowledge to really answer this question. But I really hope the Hyperloop exists. I hope that something like that happens. Other big business, and I hope we live on Mars. I really do. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I mean, Elon Musk is a very determined, smart individual. Like he's crazy.
Oh, he is a genius. It's amazing, and I mean, people don't know this. He invented PayPal. Like he started he started things that people don't even realize that he started, which is kind of funny. Everybody uses PayPal. It's like kind of funny. So, yeah. People only know him for Tesla. It's like, that's just kind of funny.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really interested, like that, the 10 years from now, I wonder where Elon Musk is going to take things, because he's definitely one of those guys. He's a leader, if anything. He's someone like ready to take the next step for humanity, kind of deal. whether that's living on Mars or whatever it is. Like, it's just insane to think about something like that. But, and then I guess next trending question we have is like, are you an iPhone or Android user, or which one do you?
iPhone all the way. I've used Android before. I'm on iPhone now. I'm never going back. More or less, and here's my argument behind it. iPhone is more user-friendly. The scrolling function is smoother and it looks sleeker. Those two things make it better than Android. Virtually everything else they do is the same. You can throw this in the bathtub, it'll still work. The Android, same thing. Virtually they do the same things. The iPhone operating system is just in general a smoother operating system. And I feel like it's more user-friendly, and they have anything that I would use that's on Android is also on the iPhone. I'm sure that I'm not a tech guy, so I can't do like the software changes and all that stuff. But it's smoother, it's sleeker. I like it. I'm sticking with iPhone. I've had an Android before, and I like the iPhone a lot better. It's been 4, maybe 5 years since that. So.
It's really just a preference for whoever. I have an iPhone too, but I'm like debating getting an Android because I absolutely hate the batteries on iPhones. I think.
I got you. Yeah.
Like I don't know what it is. The battery is terrible on iPhones.
Yeah. I got the XR. This thing's got great battery life, so I guess it's like.
That's the newest one though, because I still have the 6S.
No, I got you.
I'm kind of way back there. The reason I have the 6S is though because I hate that little adapter for the aux.
Yeah.
I hate that thing so much. When I had the 7 when it came out. I lost that thing probably 15 times. That's so much money. I was like, you know what? I'm going back to the 6 because I absolutely hate this. I hate it because I love my music and stuff like that. So like I need to be able to listen to music at work or whatever. And if I don't have that adapter, because it's an extra thing to look after. I already have my wallet, my keys, my phone. It's my headphones. Like, and now it's another thing I got to look after. I hate it.
So funny.
Like Apple's pricey too, which I also hate about.
Yeah, it is. It is. The thing is though, and this is why I invest in more in the latest tech, even though I'm willing to pay a price for it. Besides, this is my life, business life. I mean, 80% of stuff is on here. It's a work investment. It is 120% a work investment. I think I like it better. It works better for what I'm doing. And because of that, I'm willing to pay the higher price in comparison to the Droid. So, what? Yeah,
it's whatever you need. I agree. It's a work investment because you do, like you say, you don't need computers anymore unless it's the big software. You like just a typical business platform you can have on a phone. Like if I work like any AV software and stuff, you'll need a computer, but that's just a small margin. But yeah, besides that, have you seen? So there's the new movie, The Joker.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
You've seen it?
So good. I thought it was outstanding. I hope he wins Best Actor. Do you remember Signs and Gladiator, where he was like a bigger guy? He lost so much weight for that role. That is true devotion. He's an outstanding actor. I thought it was very well done. It was a psychological twist. I know that there's a lot of controversy behind the movie, but I feel like that's just because of the political environment we're living in. But I thought it was overall just a very good movie.
Yeah, I do hope he wins an Oscar for it. Because, I think they had to film it once because of how much weight he lost. Because it was unhealthy.
Yeah.
So he really put it on the line. There's so much improvised stuff in that movie, too. Like, the bathroom dancing scene was all improvised.
Really?
If you didn't know it. All that dancing and stuff, he literally just did it on the spot.
Right. Yeah.
They played the song. There's that track in there. That really dark, sinister cello track or whatever, like that that orchestra track, you know, when he's dancing to it?
I just remember the Frank's. Maybe I'm thinking of a different scene where he's going like this in the bathroom.
Well, it's after he like shoots those guys. Remember?
Maybe I'm thinking of a different scene. Huh.
He shoots those guys in the subway and he runs to the bathroom and he dances.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that scene was improvised. I actually think the one when he's in the bathroom is improvised too. I think most of the dancing in that is improvised, which is crazy because he comes up with all these different like moves and stuff. Like right up. I don't know how he does it, and it flows so well with the music.
He is so good. The laughing aspect, the whole when he would uncontrollably laugh. I thought that whole thing was genius. Like the whole thing behind it was just genius. But yeah, that was a great movie. That will. People are going to be talking about this movie for a while.
Yeah. And then another thing about it is like the controversy. Like for me, I don't understand why there has to be controversy because it brings light to a topic that is disregarded, like the mental health and stuff of things. There's a lot of people and critics saying that this promotes violence or something like that, but those are like the same people that would say video games promote violence. If anything, video games take away. Like, who goes home like and plays a game just to stir up anger? Like, games are an escape, right? You play a game to have fun. Games are meant to be fun. That's why people do them. They don't stir anger up. If you are an aggressive person, that's because of the reality of things. That's not because of a video game. It's like, oh, I played Call of Duty. Now I like want to live that or whatever. It's like, no one's like that. It's an escape, if anything. And that's what this movie is. And it's bringing light to a topic that's disregarded. And it's kind of sad how a lot of people like don't really care about mental illness in society. Everyone just ignores it. It's like, oh, he's got mental illness, whatever. And that, like, Joker does a really good job showcasing that. Of course, there's the shooting in the movie, which people are saying that like when he shoots like Murray at the end, and he shoots those men, and they think that this movie's trying to justify it by having, you know how he's standing on the car and everyone's like praising him? Yeah, there's people like trying to like, oh, he's being praised for shooting and stuff. It's like, it's not really like that, because at the same time, this movie is DC. It's the Joker. Like, he's an insane, like he's a villain. Like in later time, he becomes one of the greatest villains because of, you know, like this whole story leads up. He gets praised for this stuff. And then that's kind of the spark of like how he becomes a villain. If you see like the shootings that happen in US, no one's getting praised for that. They get locked up, they get shot, whatever it is. That like it's a bend on society because that's not the reality of things. It's at the same time it's a realistic movie, but it's not because it's a comic, like it's DC. They need to establish Joker as a villain. So what better way to do that is after he commits a huge crime, have all these guys praise him for it. That's where the villain's born. You know, that's how I saw it. I don't know why people can't see it like that. It's not going to promote anything. Like, it's a movie.